What's going on YouTube? JT is Reborn here, and welcome back to another edition of my DC comic book reviews. And in this video, we're going to be talking about Night Terror Superman, issue number 1, written, of course, by Joshua Williamson, and Tom Riley is the artist on this particular issue. And unlike a lot of the other Night Terror spin-off things, since this one is actually written by Williamson, it actually feels more important. So Williamson should have just written all his stuff and just kind of left everything else to just not be part of the event, I suppose. It just, like I said, with all the different writers and that kind of coming into this event, it felt like nothing is really, like, a lot of the side stories aren't really adding up to much, all things considered, with a few exceptions. I really like the Zatanna issue and the team up between her and Robot Man, but again, that one has to deal with more of the waking world situations. But this one, of course, has more stakes and like connections to the plot. So Superman, of course, was knocked into a sleepy slumber, and at first he thinks he's at the Daily Planet, but he realizes like things aren't really adding up, and Insomnia is like, crap, you're smart enough to kind of realize that this is not really working. And then they come face to face, and Insomnia, of course, is actually asking this time around for the Nightmare Stone, trying to find it, which is something that he should have been doing in the other side spin-off stories. Like I said, this is what he should have been doing, like in all these other stories. Just tell me where the Nightmare Stone is. Oh, wow. If only the other side's Night Terror storylines would be dealing with those, but maybe the ones that haven't, the second issues will kind of pick that up a little bit, because as of right now, it's just the stuff written by Williamson. Yeah, all things considered, Superman kind of ends up in a slumber. He's coming face to face with Insomnia, doing the best he can, but being in a slumbered state, he's not quite as powerful. He does get help from Kara, who's either in the dream world or with him, like this is legit her, or it's just another figment of Superman's imagination. But I'm going to be led to believe that this is her crossing dreams over, and they're going to try and fight things in the nightmare realm. And also, one big revelation that we do have at the end of the issue is that Aquaman and the Atlanteans in that are awake. And that's because they weren't affected by this thing that hit above the water. Didn't hit below the water, hit above the water, which put everyone to the dream world. So the Atlanteans were kind of immune to that initial attack. So that was a surprising revelation, one I think that could make for a more interesting story. I'm pretty certain that Williamson is probably going to write something Aquaman related in the next issue of the Superman thing, or whenever his next little Night Terrors thing. Because, like I said, Night Terrors isn't the worst thing in the world. I just think there's too many issues for this particular event, and a lot of them don't feel all that important. So if you trim off, like, the amount of excess with how many issues are in this particular event and just kind of focus slowly on, you know, the stuff that feels actually important to the story, then this actually wouldn't be half bad of an event so far. I mean, we're week 3 of this thing, and a majority of these storylines have hardly any connection to Insomnia at this point. Or maybe if it was just like a one-shot and then it's kind of tied into the main event, or the main storyline, it would be better. But I mean, the stuff by Williamson's, you know, working for the most part. Some issues are stronger than others, but the stuff by some other writers, and it's not always their fault, they're trying to work together on this massive event where they can't really like play around with things as much because they're kind of limited, I think, given like the assignment, if you will. It should be a little bit like they feel kind of disjointed from the event. Like they feel like they're kind of an afterthought in terms of Night Terrors, and more focused on other things. And they just don't necessarily need to really exist. You can kind of tell these other character storylines in the main Night Terrors book if they really are truly important to the story. But all things considered, I like this one a little bit more than the other ones I've covered today, because it actually felt like it was important. Probably the best Night Terrors issue of the day. I mean, the Catwoman one was a bit all right. The Nightwing one's kind of the same deal. There's some nice looking artwork and style. I mean, the artwork this time around, I don't think it's quite, like, it tries to replicate more of an older Superman comic book style. So aesthetically, it kind of fits that mold for some of those sequences, and then it kind of gets better. It kind of molds back into a more modernistic kind of style when he's fighting off against these like nightmarish creatures and figures and all that towards the later part of the issue when Kara comes in. I don't think it's the strongest art we've seen. I actually liked, I mean, art is kind of like more of a personal preference in terms of which style you liked, but I like the artwork. I think most of all so far, the ones I covered today in the Nightwing and the Punchline comic books. I think the artwork in those ones, at least like, is more of my taste in terms of style. They kind of popped off the page a little bit more. So yeah, like I said, this one's feels a little bit more important in terms of the Night Terror storyline. The big revelation at the end with the Atlanteans, because like it's actually written by Williamson, it feels more important. So I like this one the most so far of the issues we got today. Maybe my tune will change after I talk about the Wonder Woman one, but as of right now, I think this one's the strongest one I've covered, because again, it actually feels more significant to the plot, because, well, the head of this whole Night Terrors event actually wrote it. So, but it is what it is. So if you have any thoughts on this particular, not as strong as Williamson's normal Superman stuff, though. I mean, the main Superman book that we've been having has been really good, but this one is not quite as up to par with that. But again, it's a big, massive event. I am enjoying Night Terrors, I will say, more than I have been Dark Crisis, maybe because I like horror and the aesthetic of it, and it does feel in some ways like a Nightmare on Elm Street, and I'm a big fan of that series. I just wish that Insomnia was present in those other Night Terrors stories more, and at the focal point, really being the Freddy Krueger of this thing, haunting people's dreams and taking a toll and trying to get to the nightmare stone, if you will. I think that would make things a little bit more interesting, but a lot of them feel so disconnected and a bit of an offshoot from it that I think it's not working as best as it possibly could. But hey, maybe the second issues for some of those stories I've already covered will pick up the pace a little bit and be a little bit more interesting, but only time will tell until we get to next month. But anyways, if you read Night Terror Superman issue number 1, let me know what you thought of it in the comment section down below. Be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content, and I will be back after this to talk about Night Terror's Wonder Woman, and we'll be set on Night Terrors for the week. I still will also have to cover 2 other comic books that I haven't had the chance to read just yet, but we'll get there at some point. So anyways, that's all I have to say. As always, take care now. Bye-bye then, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.